I'd like to simplify the procedure, which is very critical every day, and it's not very well done, in my opinion, when we deal with anterior aesthetic composite restorations. So, the video we've chosen here is the video that really shows us something very common, and I call the anterior bonded pit restoration. What I really want to focus on here is the ability to complete these restorations using this as an example, but the materials that are used, the sequencing, how we do it, the combination of the material is very important. And in fact, all of the sequencing from the polishing is very important. So in this video, we start with our quarter round burr. Now this can be prepared with or without water. I think if there's stain in a tooth, I think the water's better, but we don't need it to actually cool the handpiece. We use the quarter round burr for this. Then we move, after that, we will move to create a cavo surface bevel. And the cavo surface bevel is something that we use in ET6 Brasseler burr. The nice thing about using the ET6 Brasseler burr is it allows us to create this bevel, because what we're looking for here is a broad cavo surface margin, which is the biggest problem when we're doing restorations that fan out onto the buccal or the labial surface, and especially one which is really framed in the center of the tooth. And these are very difficult. So the ET6 will create this bevel, and the bevel is going to allow us to have some room to actually apply the restorative material. And this is all really necessary to eliminate the white line, which inevitably occurs in some of these restorations, which will pick up stain in the future and will be a real eyesore to the patient. So now as we move into the next step, we will be going ahead at this point and we'll be micro-etching. We use the Danville micro-etcher, many different kinds. We found these ones are great. They're the go-to etcher that are in every operatory. And by etching that surface, we create a really great rough and bonded surface. Here we're applying a gel etch. I total etch everything I do. Interesting, in this video we're actually showing the two suctions as we're using copious water and rinsing, and we also totally dry. So we can see where we are. Every bonding procedure we now use, we will go ahead and we'll use microprime. It's another Danville product, antibacterial, also a great desensitizer. And we dry this off. I do this in every situation that we do bonding. Here we're using I believe it's a 5th generation Scotch bond. You can use 4th or 5th. I don't usually go much past that. Careful here that you don't apply too much. You don't need too much pooling. And then we dry and thin that out. We will then go ahead and cure that with a light. Now we set the stage to actually start to apply the first application of restorative material. We're using here a Beautifil material. The Beautifil that we're using in this place is the Beautifil High Flow F10, and I think it's an A2 or A3. We simply lightly ring around the cavo surface margin. And when we're doing this now, we will be using an Explorer to tease, eliminating any bubbles, just manipulating and moving the material out, and then we cure that. And the beauty of ringing this around, it's very, very wettable material, flows beautifully. It's the best thing I found to eliminate that white line. We now will finish here by placing a Renamel. This is a Renamel microfill. It's a beautiful sculptable material that we can place in the body, actually central to the ring. We cure that. That allows us to actually nicely manipulate with the plastic filling instrument. And then what we do is we create a really nice anterior architecture that we then move directly into polishing. Here we're using an ET6 Flame Brasseler burr to polish. We actually then are just to polishing dry, but we're establishing just generally where the margins may be. Now we're blowing this off, remove any powder that's created from this so we can keep a visual on the surface of the restoration. Now we always do this every time. We will take my Montana Jack, very sharp scaler, remove any excess flash, which inevitably is always there, primarily resin material, but also flash from the bonding. The Scotch bond we have in here that's been cured, that's a very critical component. Now, going ahead with our next step in polishing, we're still now looking again to really find out where that margin is. And this isn't where we stop, so we go ahead to our ET6 Brasseler burr. Very light touch here. We're trying to establish now just the general vicinity of where this margin is, looking to see if there's any deficiencies, any voids, any air bubbles, and we do that dry. You have to, suctioning the excess powder. Now we will follow with our ET12 12-fluted polishing burr by Brasseler, football shaped, and it will then further define where this margin is, and you can really see the polish starting to come up in the enamel and or the existing resin which is there. Following that, we go right to the next step, and in this case, any anterior restoration, I like to use 2 grits of a Dialite Brasseler polishing cup, diamond impregnated. Best thing on the market for porcelain, for enamel, or even for ceramic restorations. There we use I believe the medium grit purple, followed with an orange Dialite ultra fine in a slow speed handpiece. That allows us then to create that fine finish that now you're going to dry, you're going to clean off, and you're really going to see where we are with this. And you can see the beautiful finish that we get in that, almost indistinguishable. By design, it fans out with the Beautifil on the margins, wetted very nicely. Internally, we've got the renamel. Now, some of the things we do in here, there are times where we may want to block out any internal stain that exists on this. We would use then a Beautifil opaque material, usually flowable. And the only other thing that we might do, which would be different if we require some strength, I like the Renamel by Cosmoden again. The Renamel makes a wonderful 80% filled nano hybrid material, which really creates great strength, very low shrinkage. So I would sometimes combine, if we were doing an incisal edge, a class 4 resin, so to speak, and we would internally bury any of this hybrid material and or any kind of an opaque material. Always on the finish of this will be ideally as much as you can to have the Renamel microfill. It used to always be Durafil in the old days, but the Renamel microfill I find the best one for manipulation, to move where you want, and it's very, very easy to use with our non-stick plastic filling instruments. So you can see what we did in this restoration. It took all of 5 minutes to do this. The patient was shown before and after, and even mid when we prepare this tooth. They're absolutely thrilled. You don't have to deal with that patient sitting up and looking at this tooth. And how often you hear the patient, "What's that spot on my tooth?" Well, this is why you need to be doing something to eliminate that cavo-surface white line, to eliminate the contrast that will always exist between natural tooth and or, in this case, this is real enamel, and or something which does not have the ability to transmit light to get that masking effect. And also you can see in this restoration the light reflection off this tooth. You can't tell really where the light reflects off the enamel on the adjacent tooth or on the restoration on this tooth. Very, very critical to avoid this. Seems like a very simple thing, but this is something you're going to carry with you in just about every restoration that you will do in the anterior.